Good morning. Wow, I just want to take a moment to look at your faces. Wow. I'm just struck by how relaxed and lovely everyone looks after a couple of years of being alone and in quiet. It's really lovely to see all your faces. And I'm also very grateful for all the folks that are joining us on Zoom today. What does it mean to repair the world? What does it mean at a personal level? How do we each play our part? And what does it mean when you consider the question within your own family, your community, and beyond? Some of you know me well enough to know that I like asking questions. I believe they're really a powerful way to engage in healing work. And repairing the world is indeed healing work. So you're going to hear a lot of questions in my reflection this morning. When I heard that you'd added an eighth principle, individual and communal action that accountably dismantles racism and systemic barriers to full inclusion in ourselves and our institutions. They're powerful words. And so my first thought was, that is healing work. That is the work that repairs the world. But how do you actually go about doing that work? How do you embody that principle? How do you repair those relationships that have been impacted by systemic racism? I was inspired when I saw that Don Heights was chosen for the viewing of the Government of Canada's apology for the systemic anti-Black racism men of No. 2 Battalion faced during World War I. It's a powerful example of the work that needs to be done to repair the world. Dismantling racism and systemic barriers with Indigenous nations in Canada is yet another opportunity for healing work. What if we simply listened and learned from Indigenous nations in Canada? What if we learned some of their teachings? Perhaps how to be in relationship with everything, the interconnected web of which we are a part, as you were just speaking about. Can we learn to center ourselves in relationship with everything, not just each other, but the rocks, the trees, the wind, the water? What if we related to all of it as though it were family, as though our very survival is tied together? Is it possible to bring our relationship to the land into our personal lives and into our work? Is it possible to live another way on this land we call Canada, to not only heal ourselves, but also to heal the land? Healing the land can be integrated with dismantling systemic barriers that prevent girls and women from being full partners in society. In most Indian villages, the birth of a daughter was often seen, it was seen as a burden for a family. Rural villages operate on the dowry system, which contributes to the high cost of marriage for households with daughters. So as a result, daughters were often regarded as lesser than their male counterparts. They weren't educated as well as the boys, and they were often married before they reached the age of 18. In 2007, In the village of Piplantri in Rajasthan, India, they began celebrating the birth of a girl child by planting 111 trees. Parents actually sign an agreement that includes a commitment to planting and caring for the trees. They also agree that their daughter will not be married before the age of 18. And to date, they've planted more than 250,000 trees. And this tradition of planting trees to welcome the birth of girl children is dismantling traditional attitudes and leading to shifting attitudes about the role of women in that society. It's not only fostering a deep appreciation for the role of women in the village, but it's also instilling a sense of environmental stewardship in the community. As a result of all those trees that they're planting, the villages were able to create businesses as well. So something that started as a way to honor and respect girl children has expanded beyond all of their expectations. This is part of the work of repairing the world. At Faith in the Common Good, we strive to harness the power of diverse faith and spiritual groups through education, capacity building, and collective action to build more resilient and sustainable communities. In October 2020, Karen Van Loon, who is FCG's coordinator for our Cultivating Care for a Common Home program, published a blog titled Learning to Live in Harmony with Nature. A year and a half later, it is still the most popular story on our website, averaging more than 300 views a month. In her blog, Karen wrote, "Learning to live in harmony with nature means seeing everything is connected." She also wrote, "Nature has generally fared better where Indigenous people live or care for the land than in other areas." I think that also ties back into your new land acknowledgement that you read earlier. Inspired by the work of Anishinaabe scholar Dr. Andrew Judge, who specializes in traditional Indigenous knowledge, ethnomedicine, and land-based learning, Divest Waterloo, an FCG chapter, partnered with Grand River Food Forestry to create faith food forests in their region. Temple Shalom, Westminster United Church, Community of Christ Church, Ebby Street Mennonite Church, and Sri Ram Dham Hindu Mandir created food forests on their own properties. And then in the fall of 2021, they joined with Crow Shield Lodge, a healing sweat lodge outside of town, for a FEDGE. This is the first time I heard this word, a FEDGE. It's a food hedge planting. Who knew? Everything worthwhile is done with other people. We repair the world together. And at the same time, land-based healing allows one to connect more deeply with oneself, leading to personal healing. You've probably heard the phrase tikkun olam, which is understood to mean repairing the world. It's become synonymous with various social action and social justice activities. I remember quite some time ago in a workshop, Andrew Harvey asking, "What hurts your heart? What hurts your heart?" He silenced the room with that question. And then he said, once you figure that out, you have an opportunity to go out and do something about it. I read a story about Anne Heyman, who in 2005 learned that Rwanda had 1.2 million orphans after the genocide against the Tutsi and no systemic solution to support the well-being and development of the orphans. Inspired by the residential communities Israel built to address their orphan crisis after the Holocaust, Anne took the model to Rwanda and founded Aga Hozo Shalom Youth Village, which ensures the safety, security, and development of the orphans. Anne has passed on, and the village continues to live on, still supporting the orphans. Many people around the world are focused on ensuring that their spiritual values are aligned with their everyday actions to repair our world, such as the folks who are part of the Green Faith International movement. Green Faith is building a worldwide multi-faith climate and environmental movement. Members are repairing the world by taking action to transform themselves, their spiritual institutions, and the society in which they live. From protesting in front of financial institutions that continue to fund the largest emissions-producing companies in the world, such as Total Energy's shareholder meeting in Paris, or BlackRock's shareholder meeting in New York City, to advocating for a fossil fuel treaty, including a letter that has been signed by faith leaders and people of faith, by over 1,000 people so far. Green Faith also supported their partner, the Southern African Faith Communities Environment Institute, SAFSI for short, when they sent letters to the U.S. Agency for International Development, otherwise known as USAID, and other donors, calling on them to stop funding the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa. Evidence from a donor-commissioned evaluation confirmed the findings of an independent academic assessment that the billion-dollar program was failing to significantly improve yields, incomes, or food security for Africa's small-scale farming households. Sometimes our intention to repair the world forgets to include the people that are directly affected. And I'm grateful to organizations such as SAFI for taking a stand, given that it's a billion-dollar program. If it's not being effective, though, stop the program, create another model, engage the people who are directly affected. From October 2 to 9 this year, Green Faith is leading an international call to action, Faiths for Climate. I invite you all here at Don Heights to join that movement. All over the world, people are taking action. I am just incredibly inspired by the stories that are being shared from every single continent, confronting racism, systemic barriers to full inclusion, and working to heal our ecosystem. Some years ago, I came across this poem, and I have yet to confirm the poet's name. There's lots of theories and ideas on the internet about who wrote it, but there's no definitive proof as far as I've seen yet. If there is to be peace in the world, there must be peace in the nations. If there is to be peace in the nations, there must be peace in the cities. If there is to be peace in the cities, there must be peace between neighbors. If there is to be peace between neighbors, there must be peace in the home. If there is to be peace in the home, there must be peace in the heart. To me, this speaks to the need to do our own personal work, repairing ourselves, healing ourselves, as we also do the work of repairing the world. It reminds us that repairing the world begins with us. How will you repair yourself? which part of your heart needs healing? It also speaks to doing the work of repairing the larger community around us. How are you doing with the work of healing with your neighbors, whether they are next door, across town, around the world, in this building even? So I asked myself, how am I repairing the world? And honestly, I'm still figuring that out. Speaking here today is one of the ways I contribute to healing work. Working with the extraordinary team at Faith in the Common Good on projects ranging from planting pollinator gardens and everything in between to reducing emissions faith buildings produce. So as I said earlier, I ask a lot of questions, and I hope they will stimulate reflection and dialogue. In my experience, questions are just a powerful place to sit. They can inform the actions we take. And so, with that in mind, I offer this poem in closing by Ganga White that is filled with questions for personal reflection as you discern your part in repairing the world. What if our religion was each other? If our practice was our life? If prayer was our words? What if the temple was the earth? If forests were our trees? If holy water, the rivers, lakes, and oceans? What if meditation was our relationships? If the teacher was life? If wisdom was self-knowledge? If love was the center of our being? Thank you all.